as we know from Florence, is that if in fact there was an emergency management plan, it was stuffed in a drawer, probably next to the bicycle and pedestrian plan. No one knew what was in it, and it was a horror to get off, to get back on the island. Dorian, well, with the hiring of James Horn and the establishment of an emergency management director, it seemed like people were better trained on what they needed to do, where they needed to be, and everything that needed to be done. And I thought that the plan for Dorian seemed to work a whole heck of a lot better, particularly the communication. I think Chad Merritt was handling the communication and advising everybody on what was going on and when they could and couldn't get on the island and do whatever. So I believe that they are making a concerted effort to improve that, and that it's going fairly well so far.
Been a resident on the island for a little better than a year and a half, so we had moved into our home in Surf City in March, and then of course, you know, we had Florence, and being, you know, a little naive and a little ignorant to how everything worked, you know, getting the key cards and everything else so that we could get back on the island after, you know, after the hurricane had passed and we were, you know, allowed to get on. I barely got to City Hall and got in there and got my key cards for myself and my wife as they were moving the furniture out. And as far as, my first time boarding up, bringing everything in, it was very hectic. And with Dorian, yeah, we learned a lot. Our process went a lot smoother. We already had the key cards. I do believe that communication was way better than it was with Florence, and of course there's always room for improvement on everything. My wife had to work shift up at the Navy Hospital the night before she got back to the house. We were supposed to be, you know, mandatory evacuated for, you know, Governor Cooper, and you know, we managed to do all that. Unfortunately, she didn't get a shower before she had to leave because the water was shut off, which I understand it protects our infrastructure from damages and getting contaminated if there is any kind of, you know, problems or issues. And yeah, I do believe things went better this time. I'm thankful, so thankful that Dorian was more or less just, you know, a quick hit and run, you know, more tropical type deal. In fact, there was many areas you couldn't even tell that we had had a hurricane come through here when I arrived back in town. And I do believe it's getting better, and I still, like I say, I always believe there's room for improvement. And at least now with the new bridge, we don't have to be concerned about times where the swing bridge is broken down and you're not able to get off except to go all the way up to the north end, so that's definitely a plus.
When you're looking at emergency preparedness, if the people who live on island and off island are not aware of the proper procedure, then they're not going to know what to do. If we inform everyone in writing when they move or buy a house of our emergency procedures so they can be prepared, we need to tell them how you get a card, a key card. You need to help them understand that when we say evacuate, we mean get off the island because we're shutting off the water, the sewer, and the electricity. We need to help people understand because if you evacuate safely, we won't have problems of people getting stranded like they did on the Outer Banks. And if that way people don't have to complain because the electricity's turned off, like they didn't turn it off in California and they burned down. You have to understand, people just need to be explained what the procedure is and why you're doing it. People are, all citizens, all visitors get it, but don't just order them. Explain to them, this is our procedure, this is what happens, and they will gladly comply, but you have to keep the communication line open. I think we have started that way, and we need to put it in memorialize it in a procedure, and we need to make sure that every new citizen and every renter has this information so they know to evacuate when this happens and why they need to evacuate.
Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to assemble a task force. So we started that process, then we got away from the process. I think to rely only on the staff that we have is short-sighted. And I think that we have a lot of experienced citizens in our community, and I think we need to resource those. And that needs to happen immediately. Yeah, second thing, what I suggested for reentry is, for example, the last process you came down, we were stationed at the Methodist Church, and then they let people on. Well, one of the problems was you had contractors that were not allowed. For example, you had a water mitigation company that could come in and assess. So I believe that before you let everybody on, okay, you got to let everybody on. What does that mean? So you don't wait 6 days or 5 days or 7 days or 8 days. What you do is as soon as humanly possible, what you do is you, for example, somebody shows up with their license, A through M, gets to go on from 6 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock or till noon. Then you have M through Z go on from noon till 6. You keep their license. We got plenty of law enforcement. You go get them if they don't come back. There's ways to get on to mitigate. A lot of damage from our last hurricane, let's not forget, came because of the length of time that we were not permitted to get to our homes. Okay? And a lot of that could have been mitigated. They only let a general contractor go on from, if you had a general license as a contractor, go on the island. Well, a general contractor doesn't mean they know water restoration. So there were people that did water restoration that were on the outside looking in, waiting to get on. So we have to be more diligent about that. And the last thing is, we have to work with our neighbors. I just want to use an example on that with Mayor Anita Dingler's here. And I remember her coming to our emergency operations center, and I remember at that time when this went down, North Topsail contacted me, Councilwoman McDermott contacted me and said, hey, what's going on in Surf City? I said, oh, what do you mean? She goes, well, I can't get a hold of anybody. I said, okay, well, we're having a meeting at 1 o'clock, so they came. And then I contacted Councilwoman Pam Hall and said, hey, there's a meeting down here. So she let them know. They came, and then obviously Topsail Beach came. So when we got to this meeting, there was about 30, 40 people there. And we have to work close with our neighbors. I remember she said, hey, we have a few law enforcement you can use if you guys, because our law enforcement were exhausted, and that was denied. So we have to work well with our neighbors in order to use all our resources in an emergency time. So anyway, those are some things I would do different. Thanks.